How can one movie turn an entire industry upside down? Welcome to the story of the Sideways effect. This episode talks about the movie Sideways, the effect on wine sales, the cultural shifts, and the long-term impact on the wine industry. And where better to record this than in the hotel from the film, today known as the Sideways Inn in Buellton. Have fun with this very special episode. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 181, and today we are talking about the Sideways effect. The Sideways effect is quite a famous thing for people working in the wine industry, especially when working in wine marketing. And what this is all about, we will clarify in this episode. Before we start talking about the effect, we have to clarify what is Sideways. What is the movie Sideways and what is it all about? Sideways is a 2004 comedy drama directed by Alexander Payne, based on the novel by Rex Pickett. And the film talks about two middle-aged men, Miles and Jack. Miles played by Paul Giamatti and Jack played by Thomas Hayden Church, on a road trip through California's wine region. The movie character stories are driven by midlife crisis, by stories such as friendship and the complexity of human relationships. And I don't want to talk deeper about the story itself because you should still be able to watch that movie after you've listened to this episode. But I want to give you an idea on what is going on in the movie and what this has to do with wine sales and the effect on the wine industry. What is the wine's role in the movie? Miles, the main character, is a wine enthusiast, and he's a bit of a wine snob actually, and he's very much into Pinot Noir. And he takes great pleasure in educating his friend Jack on how to taste wine, on terroir, on flavors and aromas and all this kind of stuff. And he annoys him every now and then. This love for wine is central for the narrative of the movie, with discussions about varietals, about terroir and winemaking philosophy. And Jack is more this I like to drink wine guy, and basically he doesn't care what variety the wine is made of, he just wants to swallow it. Interesting fact about the movie is that there was a huge cultural impact of the movie itself. The film was both a critical and commercial success. It was nominated 5 times for the Oscar and finally won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. Sideways resonated particularly well with wine lovers and those within the wine industry, and as it also reached a broader audience that maybe has never had any interest in wine before, and this contributed to the movie's influence on wine consumption trends in general. So what is this Pinot Merlot thing when it comes to Sideways and when we talk about the Sideways effect in wine marketing? Pinot Noir experienced a kind of a surge after that movie, and the movie was recorded in 2004, and so this is the 20th anniversary. It's been 20 years now since the movie was released. In the US, in Europe, it was usually around 2005, and everybody was talking about Pinot Noir after that movie. Miles, a huge Pinot Noir fan, there are so many world famous quotes out of that movie. Many of them are related to Pinot Noir, and the most famous one is related to Merlot, and we'll talk about that in a second. It became the embodiment of enjoyment and quality for US wine consumers. Everybody loved Pinot Noir because Miles was so into that variety that he kept on talking about it and about what comes along with it, and this higher sophistication and this just the feeling of being maybe not a snob, but being something better, being a bit better when you drink Pinot Noir instead of a Merlot. And the wine sales in the US saw significant changes, as well as the wine and tourism industry did. And there was a study conducted in 2009. It's called the Sideways Effect, a test for changes in the demand for Merlot and Pinot Noir wines by the Sonoma State University in 2004. and they tried to figure out what really was the impact on the wine industry. They used Nielsen Scantrack data from 1999 to 2008, so 5 years before the movie and 5 years after, which measured point of sale purchase of wines from major US retail chains. Those major US retail chains are defined with those with over $2 million in sales annually across the US. It combined national sales data for the years 1999 to 2008, resulting in a sample containing 100,000 observations of all wines, foreign and domestic. And the data were aggregated for all markets and included price paid, the quantity sold, and the varietal of each purchase. And to get a feeling for the impact that Sideways really had, they compared 3 different groups. One was the Pinot Noir group, one was Merlot, and the third one was let's call it the control group of non-Sideways red wines consisting of Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah. And the results were really, really interesting. The study indicated a significant 16% increase of Pinot Noir sales, while Merlot saw a 2% decline. And right now you have to know that just in general, to that time, the sales of Merlot were twice the amount of Pinot Noir. But seeing a 16% increase can definitely be called significant. I conducted some interviews in the valley with winemakers, with tourists, and with wine merchants and just locals, what the impact in their opinion was. This is more like the hedonic feeling, but I mean, usually, especially when you live in the area or you have been living in the area for over 20 years, you get quite a good feeling of what is going on or what was going on in the area. And many wineries saw an increase in Pinot Noir sales, especially the ones that were featured in the movie. I talked to Sanford, I talked to Fess Parker, I talked to Foxen, and all these wineries and also other ones saw an increase in Pinot Noir sales. And another funny story, Firestone, another winery that was featured in the movie, they usually were and they are today focused on Bordeaux grapes and Rhone grape varieties, but the demand for Pinot Noir after the movie was so high that they started buying grapes from other vineyards and then processing it to get Pinot Noir wine and sell it to the customers. They changed that some years later to focus on their Bordeaux blends, but this is another story. Merlot, on the other side, had a really, really big problem. But this was not a problem that was only caused by the movie. You may think that because the most famous quote of the movie is Miles is standing in front of the restaurant and is screaming, "If anyone orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot." And this impacted the sales in a really, really bad way. And one woman told me a story that to the time when the movie was released, they were really sad because the customers didn't care about the true story behind Merlot and what this is all about. The hate that Miles really has for this variety because it's just caused by his divorce. His ex-wife was a big fan of Merlot and this resulted in his hate for Merlot, but people didn't care. They thought Merlot was just of bad quality. And the second thing contributed to the bad reputation of Merlot, but this happened before the movie was released. In the 1990s, Merlot was a quite famous grape variety, and before Sideways, Merlot was often seen as an easy drinking, approachable wine and was really, really popular, especially in the 1990s. So many wine growers started to plant Merlot grapes. And the problem was it was just too much. So many of these grapes ended up in really bad, untasty and low quality red wines, sometimes even off dry. And this hurted Merlot's reputation. And when the movie came out, this just, added up to this and basically giving him the rest. So to sum this up, talking about the two varieties, Pinot Noir and Merlot. Pinot Noir gained a reputation as a refined, complex and desirable wine. The shift was super large because Miles was talking about Pinot Noir in a very, very passionate way and it described it as delicate and noble grape. Whereas Merlot was seen as the very entry-level base wine grape that produces just crappy shit. And wine consumers, after the movie, started to see Pinot Noir as a symbol of sophistication and began seeking out of this varietal in higher numbers, and then resulting in an increase in Pinot Noir sales of 16%. And of course, wineries also had to adapt to this trend in both ways. When you were already selling Pinot Noir, you saw a higher demand, and of course you tried to produce more. And when you were focusing on Merlot, or one of your main wines consisted of Merlot, you had the problem that you still had to sell this wine. So winemakers started to make a shift in quality. They added storytelling. They were focusing on emphasizing the quality of the wine, of the grapes, and the craftsmanship that is behind their Merlot wines, and trying to counteract this negative stigma of the movie. The interesting thing is that 2 decades after the movie, you can still feel the impact the movie has had on the region. Wine tourism is still booming. People are still asking for the wines that were tasted, or let's say the set. They just want to take photos of the set where the scenes were recorded. There is still some issues battling the prejudices, especially when it comes to Merlot, the movie set to the grape variety. So Merlot is still recovering. Pinot Noir is still the thing, especially in Santa Rita Hills, Santa Ynez Valley. Pinot Noir is the variety. Everybody's focusing on it. There is single vineyard editions, and wine tourism is booming. And this is also something I found out while talking to the wineries or the locals, that after 2004, there was a huge rise in wine tourism. People were coming to the valley like never before. The wine clubs had waiting lists over years because people wanted to enter the wine clubs of the wineries, and wine clubs are a really special thing. Every winery has its own wine club. It's kind of a subscription model where you get the wines quarterly or annually shipped to your door. Super interesting model. And of course you get access to special events. And this really exploded after 2004. I had an interesting chat with a wine merchant from Los Olivos. He said everything just went crazy. I mean, there was wine tourism, there were wineries, there were visitors, but just after maybe 2005, 2006, everything changed completely. Just a huge impact feelable through the movie. So Sideways actually is a prime example of how media can influence the wine industry, consumer behavior, and just doesn't reflect existing trends. It can also create them and shape them in a specific way. The effect is not limited to wine only, because other industries have seen influence as well. Wine tourism, media, movie shows, and it also had a huge impact on the careers of the actors actually. Sandra Oh, for example, or Paul Giamatti. The wine industry has become more aware of this and has increasingly sought to leverage media and coverage. So we see, especially when wineries are working with wine influencers today, that they try to have an impact on the consumer behavior with storytelling, with product placements, collaborations, or just direct marketing efforts. This specific case has also demonstrated the importance of narrative and story in selling wine. The way wine is presented to the public, its story, the image around it, everything is important and can have as much impact as the wine itself. Moving forward, wineries and marketers have been more strategic about how they craft and communicate the stories behind their wines, and this will definitely stay in the future, especially with the development of social media, because social media wasn't really present in 2004. It was more like film industry, classic media, and just maybe with YouTube and then later on Facebook, 2007, 2008, there was a change in behavior and of course also in how people see wine. I want to close this episode with my personal opinion on Sideways. Sideways has shown us that there is an impact of media and of course of social media on the wine industry and consumer behavior. Pinot Noir and Merlot are the grape varieties that have really seen a significant change in reputation, in sales, And this resulted in a change of the wine industry and of wine tourism, especially in the region of Santa Barbara. Pinot Noir is, in my opinion, still the greatest variety in the wine industry. There is so many styles that are possible. You can do everything with Pinot Noir. It's still elegant. It can also be very powerful. You can make sparkling, still sweet, everything. So it's just, on the one hand, it's super complex and it's super flexible what to do with it. On the other hand, Pinot Noir is a diva. It needs love, it needs care, and only the really good winemakers are able to produce a very, very good product in the end. And of course, because I like aged wines, Pinot Noir is age-worthy. This can age for many, many years if it's made in a really good and high quality way. On the other hand, Merlot also can be of high quality, can be a good wine, but it is usually seen as the easier wine, easier approachable, not so super complex. But there are really good examples of Merlot-based wines. And I mean, the end of the movie shows Miles sitting in a fast food restaurant drinking a very expensive bottle of a Merlot-based Bordeaux blend and still enjoying it. And some of the biggest wines on the planet are Merlot-based. So Merlot can produce high quality. I have another problem with Merlot. Merlot is a grape that ripens quite fast, that accumulates the sugar quite fast. So especially when it comes to climate change, when we look at the regions where Merlot is grown, southern France, Bordeaux, Napa Valley, all regions where you already have many, many sunny days over the year and quite a warmer climate or even a hot climate, Merlot will struggle in producing lower alcohol levels, lower sugar levels, and being or staying elegant. The fruit sometimes is too overcooked, and especially when, let's have a look at on the right bank of Bordeaux. Definitely warmer over there, and the wines have the issue that it's almost impossible to produce wines under 14 alcohol. So Merlot is, of course, the full-bodied partner in a red Bordeaux blend, but it also brings a higher alcohol. And sometimes you don't want that. And especially with this shift of consumer behavior, tending to drink lower alcohol wines, lighter wines, let's say 12, 13 alcohol, Merlot will have a problem in the future. There is the chance of handling this, especially when it comes to Bordeaux, when Bordeaux is able to make a shift towards the old Bordeaux style, so the lighter wines or even the claret style. This could be possible. When you grab a bottle from the 1970s, the bottle is sitting around 12.5 or maybe 13 alcohol. And this is possible, but this needs, of course, again, the craftsmanship to make that. Of course, also the willingness to make that, because some still tend to just keep the style they currently have. Let's see what the consumer will say to that. And another thing that impressed me when it comes to Sideways, during the interviews, many people were not only talking about the good effects it had, because, I mean, the valley saw, or the region saw a rise in sales, in wine tourism. People were interested not only in the wineries, but also in the region itself. So the whole region profited from the movie. But on the other hand, there were also some negative effects. And right now I have to be careful not to spoil it too much from the movie, but there is one scene where Miles is drinking out of a spittoon. So a box where you spit your wine in if you have to drive or so. And the winery that was affected by that told me that they had to remove the spittoons for many, many years from the desk because people were entering and just trying to imitate the scene where Miles was drinking out of the bench. Another winery a woman from another winery told me that there was this problem when you were a woman working in the wine industry, or let's say serving wines to customers, the customer thought that every woman working in wine was single and they were easy to hook up with. So there was kind of a, I won't say sexual harassment, but there was definitely something in the air that was not really good. And she told me that many women were really afraid 2 to 3 years after the movie, because I mean, Jack played this player in the movie, just hooking up with the girls serving wines, and some people thought that this might be easier in the area. So this shows that there can also be negative impacts, even though it was not meant to be that way. To sum this up, the sideways effect is a perfect example of how art, or movies in that case, can influence reality in unexpected ways. So next time you pour yourself a glass, think about the story behind it. And if you have ever experienced the sideways effect, or you became a fan of Pinot Noir, or I don't know, you are a fan of Merlot and you didn't like what I was talking about, just leave me a message in the comments or send me an email at podcast@pinotpixel.com. This was it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I hope right now you want to watch the movie. It's available on almost every platform. It's on YouTube, it's on, I don't know, Amazon Prime. No, it's not on Netflix, it's on Disney. So just Google it, find it, Sideways, movie 2004. Have fun while watching. See you on Saturday with the weekly update. Ciao, ciao.